I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty pumped for this. Let's dive into Middara, the very first scenario, and see how this all pans out in our very first adventure. Let's begin with the start of turn phase. So we're going to start off at the top of an adventurer's turn here, and of course we're going in initiative order, and currently the only individuals initiating in the row are going to be Remy and Rook, so very straightforward for now. The very first phase is the start of turn phase, so we're going to resolve abilities and effects that occur at the start of a turn in this following order, shown here in the bullet point form. So resolving special encounter rules, resolving abilities the adventurer controls, resolving abilities other allies control, and resolving abilities opponents control. So that step really doesn't matter all too much at the very beginning of this scenario. We have nothing there to really look at. The only thing that's really important to do is check those special encounter rules. Do that always when going into a new encounter, because just like the movable rock we have in this scenario, or the grading system based on how well we do points wise, those are specific things to be aware of, and triggering abilities will become more of something in the future as we go along. Next up, we move to the status phase. It says any abilities or effects that have the status condition tag occur at this point. Now normally if you're playing with 4 characters and controlling them all at once, you have no status tags in play from the start. However, if you are playing the 2-player variant, you're going to see on the linked adventure card that there is a status section right here that states gain 1 SP, which is for stamina point, and that's because of our linked adventurers. So I'm going to go ahead, and we have already earlier put the extra stamina point on our character cards, which normally start with 3 based on their default settings for stamina, but are going to gain an extra 1 going into this encounter. But what we're going to do is, instead of using the flat tokens for this particular adventure, I'm going to actually use gems, because I think that'll be a really cool way of tracking the stamina. It will also look cool, and we can put it within their track on their character cards. Again, their max stamina at any point in time is a total of 5. So for Remy, as you can see here, we've got the 4 stamina gems here on the chart. I can have a maximum of 5, and again, I get that additional stamina more than normal because of the status tag right here stating to gain 1 stamina point. Now just be rest assured, I've already done this on Rook. I won't be showing that on camera. The third phase as part of the adventurer's turn is the refresh phase, and in this phase the adventurer is going to go through the following steps, which are only just 2, but really it becomes an upkeep phase is really what it is, and you're recovering your stamina points for your character and your unexhausting cards that you used for likely special abilities and bonuses throughout the round prior. So on the very first round, this phase is really skipped over because you haven't actually done any of that stuff just yet, but it will come into play in the second round and onwards. Then we move into the action phase, which is phase number 4. The adventurer is going to be able to spend as many stamina points as they'd like to use actions and abilities. That means we don't have to use all the stamina points, but we can if we'd like to. When they decide they no longer want to spend stamina points, make actions, or use any abilities, the adventure continues to the end phase. So essentially at this point in time, we're now at the action phase. We're going to move through the initiative track, which is going to start it off with Remy. Alright, so we're going to start off with Remy here, and Remy is going to spend 1 stamina point in order to begin her movement. Now on her character card, movement currently is at 6, but remember earlier on, she had the occult shirt as armor, and it states right there at the very bottom the value +1 for movement, which is fantastic. So she's going to gain that +1, giving her a total of 7 movement. Now, movement in this game is different than some dungeon crawlers. It's all orthogonal. So in other words, left, right, forward, and back, or north, south, east, and west. Those are really the only ways you can move. You cannot move diagonal in this game. However, when you're sitting put in this particular space, adjacency is still considered diagonal or orthogonal for the purposes of attacks or SOI, or any of those other things we'll be talking about later on. But for movement, diagonal movement is not allowed. So when I have 7 total movement, I have to move it orthogonally in order for it to be a valid movement. So for Remy, I'm going to have her go 1 here, 2 here, 3, 4, and this is going to take her 1 to move into. This is basically difficult terrain. It costs 1 to move into, but as you'll note right there in the bottom right, it has 2 chevrons, basically saying if you move out of that particular terrain, it's going to cost you 2 movement points. So at this particular point, I've already spent 5 movement points, so to move out of it will cost me 2 more, which will soak up the last 2 movement I have for her, bringing her to this position. Now, the second she lands there, the totems work very interestingly in this game, and you can't see the totem off screen, screen, but I'm going to shuffle the camera over you so you can actually see how closely in range we are to that totem. So this is a perfect time to talk about terrain types because Remy has moved far enough into the caverns that it's opened up a little bit. We've got a wider shot of the area, and every type of terrain that's going to be in this scenario is already shown here in shot. So we're going to talk about a few of those right now. The first one is normal spaces. Nothing new there. Literally, like every dungeon crawl, you're essentially moving one space for one movement every single time. And of course, line of sight can be drawn through all of it. The next type of terrain is the hindering terrain, which basically could have rocks in it, for instance. And hindering terrain is going to basically mess you up a little bit when attacks are made through or into hindering terrain. So if an attack is made into the space or through it, a -1 is going to be applied to the roll because there's a chance that it's going to hit the rock, essentially. So it just throws that modifier into the equation when you're making an attack, which we'll talk about later on when we actually do some attacks. The other thing to really remember is what I just pointed out in terms of movement. We did it with Remy. When you move into hindering terrain, like this one right here, you can move in for 1 movement point. When you move out is when it costs you, based on the 2 chevrons, 2 movement to move out of a hindering terrain space. So that's important to remember when you're calculating where and how much movement you have to spend. Now there's also a couple other terrain types that are not in this first scenario: water, muck, and special. Basically, they're dotted lines in blue, brown, and gold or orange. So essentially, we don't have those here. We're not going to bother talking about them until we run into them. So we'll focus on the ones that are still here, like obstructing terrain, for instance, which are these terrain types that are fully surrounded in red outline. You can see them all over the place here, like here, we've got rocks over here, formations everywhere. Even the movable rock is in red as well. It's considered an obstructing terrain type. And when it's obstructing, it's going to block all lines of sight. So that could even potentially block the totem's view from seeing us, which we'll talk about shortly how totems are activated. But basically, it's going to block all lines of sight, and obstructing terrain is not considered a space that figures can move into or out of. So obviously, I can't move Remy into this pile of rocks or out of this pile of rocks. It just is not allowed at all. Lastly, we have dangerous spaces of terrain, which is going to be these dotted white outlined areas right here, like this humongous pit we don't want to fall inside of. So figures that end a turn in, or end their movement in, or leave a dangerous space are literally defeated. So you just don't want to be caught in those spaces at all. There's even an exclamation point to let you know, do not end your movement, your turn, or anything like that in these spaces, or you will be defeated and will die. That is terrible. So what you can try to do is jump over these things, which we'll talk about later on. And if you're Remy in this case, Remy has the natural ability of flight, meaning that I can move easily over these gigantic pits and not have to worry about rolling for a potential failure as I jump over them. So that's one of the bonuses to having Remy in play right now. So now that we understand terrain types and how they affect line of sight and movement, what's really important to note is that totems inside of Middara activate very differently than you'd expect in most dungeon crawlers, where you typically will move adjacent to or on top of items in order to interact with them. In Middara, with the totems essentially draw line of sight to you. If the totems can see you, they activate. And that's when you have to go back to that master adventure book, use your decoder to find out what happens when that particular totem activates. And here we can see that drawing line of sight is likely possible because it can definitely go through a dangerous space, because dangerous space does not block line of sight. And this movable rock here, even though it's an obstructing type of terrain, is not in the way. We're going to use this target lock laser sight that I essentially used during my Imperial Assault campaign, which really came in handy in showing you guys visually what's actually the line of sight. So you can see here, between the 2 squares, essentially in Middara, you're going to go ahead and you're going to draw line of sight between the 2 squares that you want, dead center in the middle of them. And if you can draw line of sight without hitting, obstructing terrain and things like that, then you're golden. So in this particular point, we have full line of sight. And if you want to be 100% sure, you can then remove the miniature and just double check again, middle to middle, that it lines up. Yes, it does. So that blue totem would actually activate. So when a token activates, you remove it from from the board, and you're going to go ahead to the story adventure book, find that blue token, use the decoder, and find out what happens. So let's do that right now. Yes, now we get to the exciting part of revealing the blue totem secrets. We're going to use the decoder here on the adventure book to determine what's going on. It says, as you approach the boulder in your path, a scurrying sound echoes from the other side of the chasm. Spawn 2 cavesicles on any normal terrain space adjacent to the blue totem. Your heart sinks as you hear skittering coming from behind you as well. You whirl around and find yourself facing 2 more cavesicles. Spawn 2 of them on any unoccupied normal terrain space on the south side of tile UM11. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and spawn some cavesicles. So the blue totem was right here, so any adjacent valid normal space would be here, here, or here. So in order to give myself some time, I'm gonna spawn them as far back as possible to allow me some time to actually get up to them, and so they don't get too clustered up to hurt us. And then we're gonna be spawning 2 more right to the south of where Remy currently stands. All right, and 2 more cavesicles are going to pop out right below to the south of Remy. We're going to be dealing with both of those, sadly, and they have to be on this particular tile here to the left, as mentioned in the decoded message for the blue totem. All right, so those are all spawned in, and we can continue on with Remy's turn. But first, I want to talk about how I categorize the cavesicles, as well as the actual intelligence swarm, really, that these 2 cavesicle groups are coming after us with. They're both actually captured on 2 separate sheets. So one here is listed 4 through 6, and we have another one here listed 1 through 3. So essentially, I just pinned 2 bases of one of these 3 colors onto one set. So the orange there and the purple, or I guess that's more of a red. This is the orange, and I didn't use that. And then on the other set over here, we've got the blue and the green. And so that denotes the 2 different groupings. Now, how this is going to work and why it matters this way is because the actual game told us to spawn them in 2 different sets. When you spawn them in different sets, essentially it all ties back to the combatant loot, because these are combatants you're fighting. If you take out the set or the group of these cavesicles based on the colors, you gain a combatant loot card. You don't gain a loot card for every one you kill, only based on each group or set that you take out. So in this case, we got 2 sets. We have the chance to get 2 combatant loot cards if we are able to take out both groups. And you receive them right away. They can be gold, they can potentially be a unique item, all that kind of stuff. Chances are really low we're going to get unique items and things like that from this, but gold is the very, very common thing that we saw when we were setting that deck up. So there's all kinds of things going on the cards here, but we'll talk about those when they actually activate. So for right now, we need to figure out how they actually tie into the initiative track, because at this point in time, you need to find those initiative cards for the cavesicles group 1 to 3, as well as 4 to 6. All right, so now we got the initiative cards for the 2 different groups of cavesicles, 1 through 3 and 4 through 6. They're right here, these initiative cards. So we're going to be rolling to determine where in the initiative track these are going to start. So again, rolling for each of them, we roll with a black die, and it all pertains back to the character that kind of activated the totem. So in this case, Remy would be rolling them, but we're playing solo, so I'm going to be rolling. And we know right now that Remy's the very first initiative, or in the order at least, and then Rook follows second place. So we'll be rolling for cavesicle 1 through 3. Now how this works essentially is when you roll this die, if you land a skull, then this cavesicle group is going to land in the initiative track after the character that triggered it. So in this case, after Remy. So that's kind of nasty. If it lands all books, which is one of the sides here, the exact same thing will happen. So the skull or all 4 books are going to trigger these cavesicles to be dropped right after the character that activated that particular totem. But if we roll any other side, it all comes down to shields. And what the shields do is denote how much further down the initiative track from that position after the character that activated it, you'll be bouncing down the initiative order. So essentially, if I rolled this, I would be placing the cavesicle right after Remy. And then because there's 3 different shields here, I would move it 3 slots down the track, meaning I jump over 3 other initiative cards and then finally put it wherever it lands. Now, because I'm playing the 2-player variant, there's only 2 cards there, that will push cavesicle 1 to 3 right to the end. So really, at the end of the day, for this first roll, there's only 2 results here. I'm either going to put it right after Remy, or it's going to go to the end of the line, because there's just not that many characters. But in a 4-player game, that's going to matter a little bit more, when you're controlling 4 characters, I should say. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to roll this for cavesicles 1 to 3 to see where it lands. Okay, so we got the 4 books. So straight away here, we're going to have, it looks like the orange and purple ones, which are right here, which is really sad. Both of those are going to activate first, right after Remy's done her turn. So she now knows she's got to deal with those ones for sure. And then we're going to roll again for the Casicles 4 to 6, which is this group over here. Oh my gosh, more books. Now this is interesting because this actually puts the Casicles again 4 to 6. We'll put them right after Remy, which is actually before the last group of Cavesicles 1 to 3. So everything else gets moved down. Again, pretty nasty. So now we have kind of a really unfortunate spread here because none of them landed at the end of the track. So we're going to be dealing with them right away as soon as Remy's turn's done. So it's even more important now that we focus on attacking these things and getting rid of as many of them off the board as we possibly can. Alright, so now with the totem fully resolved, and that totem acted immediately the second that I could draw line of sight to that totem is when it activated, which meant it interrupted my movement because I still can spend a stamina point if I so choose in order to move an additional space. But it's going to be 2 extra movement points is what I gain for spending 1 stamina. For every stamina I spend, I can continue to move 2 more spaces. So that's pretty handy. In this particular case, I want to do that because now I know I've got Cavesicles to deal with. They're basically going to initiate on the initiative track right after me. I need to make an attempt on trying to take these things down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend 1 of my stamina points here in order to move closer. It's going to bring me into hindering terrain, sadly. Again, it only costs 1 movement. I still have 1 left, but I'm going to basically forfeit it anyway because I'm just trying to get close to these guys. The next thing I'm going to do is instead of spending my final 2 stamina, I will use that at the end of this turn for Remy when I do my regular attack, which is the first time you guys will see a regular attack, and I'll go through all the phases of that. First, what we're going to do is see if we get lucky. We're going to go ahead and toss some throwing knives. Now, these knives can be used up to range 4. I basically just pick a target. They are discarded. I throw a purple die, and whatever the numeric value that lands is the damage that that particular enemy takes. My hope with this is that with a low of 1 and a high of 7 in terms of the numerical value, plus the fact these things only have 6 health, I have at least 2 sides of this die where I could just straight up kill them. So that's a 33% chance. And if I'm rolling twice, I don't know, it's not bad. It might happen. And really, I'm hoping to thin the amount of enemies that are going to activate very, very soon and come after me. So let's do this. First, I'm going to target this orange one right here with 1 of the throwing knives. So I'm going to toss it. Again, I can purchase this later on. It's only 4 gold. Pretty cheap item, but very, very useful in the fact that it basically does its damage directly right away, which is really cool. So here we go. We're rolling the purple die. We've picked our target. It's within range 4. Let's see what happens. Okay, so that was the worst possible roll I could have ever gotten, except for just a 1. But that's going to be 2 damage on the orange one. Now, I could roll this again by throwing another knife, and I'm thinking about doing that, and I could target the purple in case I happen to hit a really high damage amount. But you know what? I want to make sure I wipe 1 of them off the map 100%. So let's go ahead and target the orange one again a second time. Remember, these don't cost stamina. I'm simply burning them. They're consumables. I can use them at will. So I'm going to now roll for this. Now we only need a 5 in order to, we only need a 4 or higher in order to kill this thing off. And now the odds get a little bit better for us. So here's hoping my rolling improves. 5. There we go. Much better. So that is enough damage to kill off that 1 Cavesicle. So it is dead. Well done. The actual knives did their job, flying through the air, piercing. And we've taken out the first one. Now again, we don't gain a combatant loot card until we kill the entire group, and then we can draw one. So I've thinned the herd a little bit. I no longer have any knives though, so that's the only negative there. And now what we're going to do is we're going to spend 2 stamina points, the last 2 stamina points I have for Remy, and I'm going to target an adjacent enemy or combatant, which is going to be the purple Cavesicle, because remember, you can target adjacent enemies diagonally, you just can't move diagonally. So we're going to target this purple one here by spending 2. as a action. Basically, we're doing an attack action. Again, if you're unfamiliar with the cost stamina wise, the reference card will always let you know exactly how much it costs. An attack action is 2 stamina. Make an attack against a figure using combat dice of your equipped weapon. Well, what equipped weapon do we have on Remy? We have the War Axe. So this is a 2-handed War Axe that is going to allow us to roll 2 white dice. So I'll definitely grab those to start. So instead of telling you guys all the different ways that we can potentially beef up this attack, what I'm going to do is actually run you through it so you can see it in action. It'll make a lot more sense than me just talking to you through all the hypotheticals. Let's show a real world example of how this thing works. So the attack action in general has us choosing a target. We've chosen the target. It's within range and line of sight for us. We are right next to it. We're adjacent to it. We can make that attack with the War Axe. It's a 2-handed weapon, gives us 2 white dice. One thing to note, guys, if any weapon ever only gives you 1 combat die, doesn't matter what the color is, and you're only rolling 1, you're allowed to roll 1 additional purple die with it. That's something to remember. Also, if you don't have any equipped weapons, so in other words, any of these red bordered cards whatsoever, or for some weird reason, maybe a boss or an enemy has stripped you of your weapons, then you are allowed to roll 2 purple dice at the bare minimum. You can essentially think of these as having your bare hands. You're basically just punching the thing pretty much. So just remember that, because there might be times where you don't even have a weapon equipped. It won't be very often, but you never know. So right now we have the ability to use the War Axe, 2 dice. We're targeting this particular cave sickle right here. We know that the cave sickle's defense is 8. That is the number we need to land in total between the 2 numerical values on these dice in order to consider it an actual hit. If we at least get to 8 or higher, it's a hit, and that's a good thing. If we land just 8, we get no additional damage off the numerical values. If we land, say, a 10 or 11, whatever the difference between that 10 or 11 to the defense, which is 8, we gain in damage, which is awesome. So if we rolled an 11 and the defense is 8, we not only hit because we were above the 8 or we met the 8 or were above it, but we also get to take the difference and start totaling them up as damage. So we start our roll, before we even resolve any symbols, as already having 3 damage, which is half its health, which is pretty awesome. So if we get a high roll, very, very good. The symbols are going to be what saves you in order to push you up above or beyond wiping the thing off the board. Of course, if I roll a straight 8 here, then I'm really, really relying on my symbols to try to pull me through. So let's go ahead and roll for our attack, knowing full well I'm rolling these 2 white dice. Cross your fingers. I'm really hoping I can wipe this thing off the board in a really good example here. Okay, that's perfect. This will work great. So we actually did a half decent attack here. We landed a 7 and a 2. That is a total of 9. We had 8 defense to hit, so we definitely hit it. Next, we take the 9 and the 8. We subtract them. It leaves us with 1. That means I've already done 1 damage before anything else. So I'm going to take this thing up, move it out of the way. We're hitting the purple one, so 1 damage is already on there. We still need 5 more to kill it. So this is when we start looking at our symbols. You can see here I got 2 shields. 2 shields can be spent, each shield can be spent to increase the damage of physical damage by 1, giving me another 2 damage, meaning I can pump this thing up to a 3, which is flipping the 1 over to a 3 side. So now I have 3 total damage on the sickle and only need 3 more to kill it. If I've spent both of those shields, I move on to the book. Can I use the book? I currently don't have anything that gives me any extra for a book. What I do have is the Hammer Helm, which is a passive ability. It says your attacks gain +1 physical damage. So right there, I gain another damage just because I have the Hammer Helm ability, which is a discipline card. And it's passive. I don't have to exhaust it, flip it, or do anything with it. I just get it all the time. So boom, up to a 4. Lastly, we have this star. Now, the only star that I have to activate anywhere is my linked adventure right here. If we had an ally within SOI, basically within 4 range of us, they would gain a stamina point, which is huge. So if Rook had been within 4 range of Remy, which he is not, then he could have gained some extra stamina. So that's something to try to do later on, because that could be really advantageous for us. But at the end of the day, our total amount of damage that we did this thing was 4. We weren't able to actually kill it. Now, the normal flow of the different steps for an attack are choosing the target, which we did, building the combat dice pool, which we did, and then deciding whether or not we want to empower the attack we're doing. So if we had the stamina to spend, we'd pull a black die into the fold, and we would try to use this black die to bolster the amount of emblems we could have rolled or icons we could have rolled. So if I had to roll something like this, it would have been wild because that would have given me 4 more physical damage. I would have blown it right off the map. The only thing is, in order to empower, you need to spend that stamina to do that. I didn't have any, so I couldn't do it, but that's something to keep in mind as an option. Again, you have to do the empower before you roll. Next, you check for dodging. So you check to see if the actual enemy that you're fighting has dodge. I know the Cave Sickle doesn't, so I went right past that and went right to the next step, which is rolling, which we did. We got the 9 we needed, which was above the defense. The next thing that happens is we determine the damage, which we just did with you guys here, showing you how I was able to use emblems as well as the difference between the numerical values and the defense to bring up the damage. And then if the particular attack actually missed completely, there is a chance that the target could counter, which is why I have a whole bunch of these counters down here on some of these cards. Like the ability core allows me to counter. I have this occult shirt that allows me to counter. So if Remy is ever being attacked by a Cave Sickle, I can actually exhaust these cards to have a potential chance to counter if the Cave Sickle rolls a 2 white die attack against me and doesn't land equal to or higher to my defense, which is a totally separate attack, of course. But that's just something to be aware of, that countering is an option. But in this case, does not apply when resulting in regards to the Cave Sickle. Then the missed attacks are going to end, and you use a follow-up abilities if there's any mention. And some of the follow-up abilities are typically on these combatant cards. They'll show as FU, which is kind of ironic and hilarious because that's essentially what it is. It's a big FU to you as you try to survive that follow-up attack. So basically, that's a run through of the attack phase. And of course, we'll see this again a couple more times so it'll become more familiar to you. You might be confused because it might seem like a lot. There is quite a few steps there. But once you get the gist of it and see the countering in there as well, it'll all come together. So we managed to do 4 total damage, which was not enough, sadly, to kill this thing. I was really, really hoping to get rid of it. But there's really nothing else I can do here. So that is going to end Remy's turn. So when we're activating the Cave Sickle group 4 to 6, I've gone ahead and grabbed that particular card. Again, you'll notice there's no damage on those ones because they're up here. We haven't hit them yet. They're going to activate by following the AI markers. You can see there's the diamonds basically, and you'll go one by one until one of these conditions is true, and then you stop. So essentially you try to do this one. If you can, you do it, and then you're complete. If you can't, you move to the next one, try it. If you can complete it, you're done. If not, you move to the next one, that type of thing. What you're going to notice here, though, it's very, very interesting, is there's a number of things on the card that I haven't spoke to just yet. So first off, Intelligent. Intelligent basically speaks to combatant cards that are usually represent opponents to the adventurers and are used to basically automate figures. They're smart, intelligent figures that are typically, in this case, this is a swarm of them, so there's actually a group of 3 of them on one card. Now, not all of them are going to be like this. Sometimes there's just going to be one per card, like one particular miniature or enemy that you have to deal with, but in this case it's a swarm. The DR is the difficulty rating. It's currently at 1, so very low because we're entry level into this thing. These are the passive abilities for the Cave Sickle. So Sickle Autonomy here says the Cave Sickle has immunity to poison, so if we try to poison it, not going to happen. And movement point cost is not increased by terrain or allies, so this thing just moves really well. It also has the hive mind ability we talked about earlier. So basically, if somebody's within another Cave Sickle's within SOI of it, the dice are going to change based on how many are within SOI or sphere of influence. So within 4 range. So if there's 1 within, it's going to basically normally it's going to attack when it makes an attack with 2 white dice. If there's 1 other Cave Sickle within SOI, one of the white dice is going to swap out for an orange die to match this particular setup. If there's 2, both of the white dice will swap out and 2 orange dice come in. So basically it's just making the dice worse and worse on you as it attacks you. So we're going to go ahead and activate the very first one from this group, as you always do at the very beginning. So we are on initiative 4 to 6. So 4 is right here. That's going to correspond to this one right here. And he is going to try to do the very first thing. It says, is there an opponent adjacent? There is not. Cannot do it. It's not a truce condition. We move to the next one. Is there an opponent within range 4? Again, we can draw range diagonally, but basically 1, well, actually, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no way he can actually draw range 4, especially with this particular terrain type right here, blocking line of sight. It's just not going to happen. So he's going to have to move all the way down here to can it move and attack an opponent within range 4. So it says here, move to be up to range 4 from the nearest opponent. That sounds like something that's totally doable. So the blue cave sickle is going to go ahead and move. It's going to actually, one of its golden rules for these intelligent individuals is they're going to try to jump over that cavern. And yes, they're even going to risk their own life to try to get close enough to me to make an attack. This is where it's really fun, because in most dungeon crawlers, they don't ever do that. Typically, if you can't move, or there's like a giant cavern or a giant pit blocking the enemy's movement, they just stay put and wait for you to show up. These guys don't wait, they just come after you. So that's really cool. What you do is for every space that you move out of that is a dangerous terrain space, you roll a black die, and there's a potential that the cave sickle falls to its death, which is awesome. So essentially I have a movement here of a full 6. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And once it lands here, this is where it'll stop. And the reason it's going to stop there is because it says move to be up to 4 range from the nearest opponent. So basically it jumped across here, and when you're going across those giant caverns, it's going to land on the opposite side. It's not going to continue its movement any closer, even though it still has movement to spend, because it only needs to be up to 4 range from the nearest opponent. So it'll stop dead in its tracks right there. But what we do is we roll this die twice, once for every space that it could have potentially fallen into along the way. And we're going to cross our fingers that it lands a skull. If it does, it literally dies. It's defeated. It's that easy. So here's hoping that's what happens. So here we go. Come on, cave sickle, fall to your death. Okay, so the first spot was a miss in terms of this one right here. We'll go for the second one. Come on, give me that skull. No, so it was safe. He made it across, no issues. So we'll continue on here. It says, then make a ranged attack 4. Now, just before we go ahead and do that range 4 attack, we want to make 100% certain that we can actually draw line of sight from the enemy to where Remy currently is, who is going to be the only targetable enemy that this cave sickle can go after currently. So as of right now, this line, if I remove these 2 characters from these spaces, just move them side to side here for a second and draw that line, yes, that is an easy line of sight. So definitely can draw line of sight from where it currently sits to Remy. It's going to hit her when she's not looking. And again, the 4 attack simply means at 4 range it's going to make an attack. Again, we're going to have to check for Hive Mind, which is the SOI. It's going to start with 2 white dice, but now we have to calculate how many other cave sickles are within range 4. Now, it's important to note when using SOI to determine line of sight, opponents, allies, and all terrain other than obstructing terrain do not block or hinder line of sight. So basically, the SOI, when calculating that, you don't have to worry about anything on the board blocking it except for obstructing terrain. That does actually block SOI. So in this particular case, definitely this cave sickle right here is 1, 2, 3 away, definitely within the 4. So we have 1 within SOI, so Hive Mind can actually work there. And over here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank goodness he's 1 further away. Otherwise, it would have really racked up to 2 orange. So instead, it's just a 1. So we're going to swap out 1 white die for an orange die, which is still not good. And we're going to get ready for an attack against Remy. Alright, so because we're actually having an attack coming against us, this is a really good time to re-review the attack action, because there are some steps and side steps to this whole process. And now that we're being attacked, let's go over it again and see how it works when we're on the defensive as we're being attacked by this cave sickle. So the blue cave sickle from group 4 to 6 is making an attack against us from ranged, so we're not adjacent to it. This is going to affect us in terms of whether or not we're able to counter. We're currently not adjacent to anybody, and if we wanted to exhaust a card to counter halfway through this particular attack, we don't have any weapons that can actually reach that character, so countering is not an option for us. But in future attacks, if we're adjacent, we may be able to pull that off. So first off, you start the attack action by choosing your target. So the cave sickle chose us because we're within 4 range, and we're the only one within 4 range, and the line of sight was drawn. Next up, we build the combatant dice pool. We just did that by grabbing the 2 white dice from this sheet, but realizing also that Hive Mind applied, which added in a orange die and took out one of the white dice. So basically replacing it, making it a little more stronger, a little more scary. Next up is the Empower section. Now, the Empower is usually more so focused on the adventurer. So in this case, when I'm making the attack, Empower is really cool because I can spend an SP, which is a stamina point, to bring in a die to attack. But when it's a combatant making an attack against you, the actual card they have has to state they use Empowered, or there has to be a black die symbol on it for them to gain this black die for Empowered. Otherwise, they don't get it. So in this case, no empowerment for the Cave Sickle. The next thing that can happen is dodge. So this is where I can choose before the dice are rolled whether I want to dodge. Now, if I have 1 stamina point to spend, I can try and dodge. So you have the ability to dodge whenever you so choose, as long as you have the stamina to spend. I do not currently, so I'm just going to state I'm not dodging, and that's pretty much that. I don't have any other cards that would do so, although now looking at this, I actually do have the occult shirt, so I technically could dodge by exhausting this shirt. It says dodge, and if the attack deals no damage, unexhaust this and then counter. Now, I already told you guys that countering won't help me, but dodging could help me, so maybe I should. I don't see any reason why I shouldn't do this. So maybe I will actually exhaust this card in order to dodge. And what that is going to do, because that's a free one, I don't have to spend a stamina for that, we're going to go ahead and make a dodge roll. A figure who uses a dodge roll rolls the black die, as we talked about, and we're going to roll, and for each rolled defense shield rolled, you get to add +1 to your defense. And if we roll the skull, the dodge fails and no additional defense is added. So basically, this is really good because our regular defense is a 10 plus a 1 for our ability core, so it's 10. If I roll any shields on this while we're rolling the attack, I beef up my defense and make it harder for them to hit me. So this is actually a really good time to use that occult shirt. So we'll go ahead and choose to dodge. Now we roll our dice. So we're going to roll all 3 of these together, and we're going to hope that we do not see a hit land. And this is all based on the numerical value of the orange and the white die versus my defense. Nice. Okay, so first off, I got that skull that I really didn't want to see. It says if that is rolled, the dodge fails and no additional defense is added. So it doesn't mean you're hit, it just means the dodge is a complete waste. So I burnt that shirt for nothing. What was really funny is that it rolled so poorly, it didn't hit me anyway. So it only got a 7, it needed a 10 to hit me, so a complete miss by the blue Cave Sickle. And just like that, the Cave Sickle's turn is over because you cannot resolve your symbols on the dice for physical damage like we have here with the Cave Sickle, unless the actual numerical values are higher, equal to or higher than the defense that I have. So nothing happens, which is fantastic. The other thing to note with this occult shirt from the last attack was because the last attack actually gave us no damage, this actually becomes unexhausted based on the text at the bottom. It says if the attack deals no damage, unexhaust this card and counter. Now, I told you guys I can't counter because I wasn't adjacent using my War Axe to the one that attacked me from range, but I do get the card back in its ready state, which could be really useful for whatever is likely to be another attack against me in the future. All right, we're going to go ahead and activate the green Cave Sickle, which is going to try to do the very top one. There's no one adjacent to him. There is no opponent within range 4, so it is definitely going to try to jump over the cavern here in order to make it to me. So we're going to go ahead and go. It has 6 movements, so you guys are aware. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is legal movement, by the way. Even though it looks weird, he can jump that way. So he lands there. He's within 4. He can make an attack, but first we need to roll those dice and hope and pray that he has fallen to his death. So we're going to roll 2 dice here, 1 for each of the dangerous hazardous spaces here, and hope that he dies. Come on, give me a skull. That's not good enough. We need 1 more. Come on. No, 2 misses. So they survive jumping over. It's too bad. There is certainly enough Cave Sickles around here easily within SOI to bump the 2 regular white dice while building the pool to 2 orange dice, which are quite aggressive, so that's not really all that great for me. Now, what I'm going to definitely do during this one is I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before, and I'm going to do the dodge roll. So we're going to rotate this sideways so that I can bring a black die into play to try to dodge out of this one. This will help me to up my defense, to give me a better chance to to surviving this attack, because it's likely to be quite nasty. So let's go ahead and roll this and see how things pan out. All right, besides throwing the rock across the entire dungeon, I actually rolled incredibly well. Regardless of my ability to dodge, they completely miss. Now, I may sound super confused and shocked here when I talk about this, but that's because I cannot believe I'm not getting hit by these attacks, because with the amount of these cave sickles around and this SOI building up the hive mind, I'm really surprised they haven't got enough defense. I mean, I didn't even need to roll this. They didn't match or get up to 10 anyway. So I'm really, really happy. Another complete miss, and we've gone through initiating cave sickles 4 and 6, and if anything, they've just gotten closer to us, which is bad in a way because the hive mind continues to stack up and get worse for us if we don't get rid of them. But the positive is they're now within striking distance, and I can probably go after them and hopefully take out as many as I possibly can going into the next turn. All right, now this is going to be quite nasty. So what's going to happen here is, again, the occult shirt that I used to dodge last time was successful because I never, ever had any damage happen. It says unexhaust the card if the attack deals no damage. So I have this back again to use for another dodge going into this attack, which is really good because this attack's going to hurt. So this one here is going to start off at the very top, and it says, is there an opponent adjacent? Yeah, Remy is definitely adjacent and in range and in line of sight, so this attack is certainly going to be targeting her. Again, 2 white dice, but we have to look for hive mind. We have 2 other cave sickles, so that's going to push us up to the 2 orange level again. Remember, when calculating hive mind, it's how many other cave sickles are within SOI, not the total of them. So there's 2 other cave sickles within 4 range. So these 2 dice here are going to be swapped out with the 2 orange dice, just like the last attack that came from the green one. Still been nasty and bad for us. I'm definitely going to go ahead here, and I'm going to exhaust the occult shirt again to allow myself a chance to dodge and get some extra defense. So we're going to try to keep on dodging, hoping to survive. So here we go. We don't want to see anything 10 or higher, that's for sure. Oh, that's perfect. What a great and pathetic roll from the cave sickle. That's literally actually the lowest roll possible on those orange dice in any combination. So that's fantastic. So we definitely get our occult shirt back again, which is crazy. I still can't believe we haven't been hit yet. And I didn't, again, need this die at all. So I've got some good luck going for me, that's for sure. So that's all been resolved, and this is the thing, guys. If the first attack is not successful, there is no follow-up attack. So the making of an attack afterwards is only successful if the actual attack before it was successful, then a follow-up attack would actually happen. So in this case, the attack action ends because it's considered a missed attack. So in the order of operations for the attack action, right after you roll your dice, you determine your damage. In this case, we didn't have any because it didn't hit. Then it goes to missed attacks end. So if an attack missed, the attack immediately ends and you skip the follow-up step. So no matter how many other follow-ups there are, and you can see here there was 1, 2, like if this thing was hitting every single time, it could potentially hit me 3 times, which would just devastate me if there were high hits. So we definitely dodged a bullet there. Okay, so that's all resolved. We're finished all the cave sickles. We can finally go back to a hero in Rook and get him into the battle, hopefully. So Rook is going to activate next. There's some important things that I want to note right off the get-go. So first off, he has 2 Warhammers. The reason this is important is because when they're in what's called a combo, which means if you have 2 Warhammers equipped, a single Warhammer gains heavy. So essentially what that means is heavy kind of has a good and a negative side to it, positive and a negative. Really, the positive is if there's any effect in the game like water that would push characters downstream, heavy keeps him in place and he doesn't move as fast. If these are equipped, 2 of them like this, then he stays in place better. He doesn't get shifted off by the current. However, the downside is if he's carrying these 2 massive Warhammers and he's actually moving with his regular movement speed of 6, he actually decreases that speed down by 1. So he's actually going to be moving with only a 5 movement, which is not exactly the best. So it's going to be a little bit slower for him, which means he'll have to burn more stamina to get up into the fight, which is kind of unfortunate. We also have a ability to use a hyper energy HP potion at some point within SOI, we can heal 3 and gain a stamina point. This is for an ally. And then we can use this to discard as a consumable, remove an effect from an ally within SOI. Our actual this is actually really cool. So for Zeke's linked adventure card, it says once per turn, reroll your dodge roll. So if we're trying to avoid being hit, we get to reroll that black die, which can really help us. We only do it once per turn, but turns come around fairly often each round. Once a round, but fairly often in a particular scenario. We also have the set of armor here, which is going to give us a +1 on armor, meaning when a hit actually gets through, the armor is going to negate some of the hits. So that'll be something we'll have to remember. We didn't have any armor that actually negated hits on Remy. So this is where there's a difference there in the armor we currently have. We also have a +1 for our defense, similar to what Remy had. So we have 10 total. We have a passive thing here that says conviction upgrade white die. So basically, normally when you roll conviction, we'll talk about that later, you roll 2 purple dice. This conviction upgrade means passively we can upgrade one of those purple dice to a white die, basically making the odds better for us. We'll talk about conviction when we actually land it. And then below it says flip when making a conviction check, pass a conviction check. So again, when we get to that, we will deal with that. So that's pretty much it. He's got 14 health plus his crazy 12 health from Zeke. So 26 health going into this. All right, I got a plan of attack here, and I hope it works out. So the only cave sickle that Rook can actually get to while holding those gigantic hammers equipped is going to be this purple one. And the purple one's already injured. It's got 4 damage, so it should be an easy kill for him. And if he kills it, he's going to go ahead and gain a combatant loot card. So let's go for it. Let's actually go ahead and spend 1 stamina to move him. He's going to move 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And again, if we burn 1 more stamina, we gain 2 more movement points. So that'll take us 1 here, and then we'll just turn her so that her wings aren't blocking everything and move him right into here. Again, we haven't hit any hindering terrain or anything like that along the way, so everything was just a 1-point cost. So 7 movement total. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Again, all orthogonal, no diagonal movement used. I wish we could move diagonal. If we could, we'd be flying across the board with that much movement. But hey, we made it here. We now can use his last 2 stamina that he has. So we've literally burnt every piece of stamina we have here for Rook to fight. Now let's go ahead and build out Rook's dice pool. So he's got 2 Warhammers. They're single-handed weapons each, which will give him 2 white dice. I have no actual stamina left to empower this attack to add a black die in, which would be fantastic. I'm doing a quick look over his cards to see if there's anything I can do. Yes, there is. So his Warhammers themselves actually have the ability to be exhausted to empower. So I'm going to go ahead and do just that. I'm going to exhaust that Warhammer, which will give us a black die, giving us a better chance at really hitting this thing. Now, this is risky. We don't need that much damage on this thing. Maybe I don't need to do this, because if I land that skull, the whole attack is a waste. But there's no numerical value on this either. So, that is a tough one. Should I do that or not? That is hard to decide. I'm going to risk it. So we'll put that in there to empower. In terms of his actual discipline card, it says per encounter gain 2 heal tokens. When these tokens are spent to heal an ally other than yourself, gain 1 stamina point. So basically per encounter, I have 2 healing tokens that Rook can use at particular points in time that we'll talk about later as well. So let's go ahead and roll these. I think that's all we can possibly muster for a dice pool currently, and hope for the best. So we're looking for, based on this particular cave sickle, we're looking for something that surpasses 8. Or 8, actually 8 or surpasses 8. So here we go. Oh, we just got it. And actually, you know what? That black die is going to help us out quite a bit. It's going to give us more than enough. So just so you guys are aware, the Warhammer that I exhausted, which is on its side, I can still, of course, reference the bottom portion of it for all of its boosts and stuff like this. Of course, an 8 matches the defense, so no additional damage. We just got a successful hit. But I can then use all my shields. So for every 2 shields I got, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, I get 1 physical damage. So I'm already at 2 damage, which is going to put the cave sickle at 5 damage total. or sorry, that'll take it from 4 to 6. That's actually enough. We don't need to do anything else. The stars, we didn't get books. I don't think I can actually activate anything worthwhile with books currently yet, but we got exactly what we needed. So good thing I decided to use that empowerment. This cave sickle is gone. Another one blasted off the board by Rook. Actually, this is the first one blasted off the board by Rook, but Rook is going to come running in and steal the credit. So because Rook was successful in taking out that group of cave sickles, we gain a combatant loot card. So we'll flip this thing over and see what we get. We have 5 gold, so I'm going to be placing this right next to Rook. We'll be calculating that all out once we get to the end of the scenario. Just make a note that for the 2-player variant, there are some different rules in how gold is calculated. We'll talk more about it when we get to the end of the scenario. The other thing that's worth mentioning is now that the orange and the purple cave sickle have been eliminated from the game currently, we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove 1 through 3 from the initiative meter because they will not be initiating come the next round because there aren't any currently. Now we're still on Rook's turn and Rook has run out of stamina. Is there anything else we'd like to do with Rook? We have things we can discard for healing. We have things we can discard to remove effects. None of those things are really useful right now. So we're going to go ahead and say that Rook's turn is complete, and that is actually going to call for the end of round. So at the very end of the round, we had one thing in the scenario that it stated to do, and that was to grab a time token and represent this by placing at the end of the initiative meter, which has now gotten a little bit smaller thanks to that last kill from Rook. And this is going to again gauge how successful we are, and we're hoping to get through this scenario as quick as possible with as little time tokens as possible. So we put a 1 time token up there to represent that, and basically the initiative order that we see currently stays exactly the same. The initiative order in this game is not shuffled round by round and redrawn out as we did in the very first round, although I'm only playing 2 characters, so that shuffling was pretty minor. But if you're playing and you have a lot of characters already strewn out after round 1, be sure not to shuffle those back together and then redraw them back out for your initiative meter. You don't want to do that. Keep them exactly the way they are unless a game effect or otherwise states you need to change that initiative. So for now, we're going to be jumping right back to Remy for the second round. All right, so now that we're out of round number 1 and we've gone through it at a slower pace, so we have a rough idea as to how an adventurer's turn pans out, we're going to start picking things up a little bit. I'm going to skip over things from this reference card here that don't apply. I'm no longer going to speak to them as we go through it, only if we actually need to resolve something for them. So the very first thing that matters is the status phase. We're going to skip right past the start of turn phase because none of it matters. Status phase is going to allow us to use our status tags on our cards, which link back to our linked adventure, if you remember from the first round, giving our characters 1 extra stamina each to start the round. So I've gone ahead and done that. Next up, we go to the refresh phase. We're going to recover stamina points. So we get our 3 stamina points that we would normally get. So now I've got a total of 4 here for Remy. Same with Rook on the opposite side. And we're going to unexhaust any cards we exhausted for benefits and things like that through the last round. So that's going to include the Warhammer, the Occult Shirt, all that kind of stuff becomes unexhausted. Now remember, with the Occult Shirt, we exhausted this multiple times, but the really cool ability on the very bottom said, if the attack deals no damage, unexhaust it. So we kept using it, unexhausting it, using it, unexhausting it. So we have nothing to unexhaust there. Whereas with the Warhammer on Rook, when we used it to empower, we exhausted it. So we definitely need to bring it back to life, essentially, and reactivate it. So that's going to cover all of that. We can move straight in now to the action phase. We're starting out based on the initiative track, which is Remy. So Remy is right here. I want to get Remy right up adjacent to those sickles that are currently left so we can take them out and move on. So our heroes know what needs to be done at this point. So we're going to go ahead and spend a stamina point from Remy's pool, and it's going to allow her to move. I'm going to choose to move. Maybe we'll move to here. This is tough. Now, I'm going to have to spend 2 stamina to fight or attack one of these things, but I also want to make sure that I'm adjacent. So maybe I won't go here. Maybe I will just dive myself right in between them, because I have that really cool ability with the Occult Shirt to be countering, and also to dodge, I should say, their attacks, and then potentially be able to counter back and be able to reuse it later. So that might come into an advantage in terms of countering and be able to take one of them down on their turn, because on my turn right now, I only have 3 stamina left, so I'm going to spend 2 of it to attack, and that's the reason why I'm not going to be able to attack both of them, because I don't have enough stamina to do that. It'll leave me with 1 stamina as well left for her to spend later on. But for now, let's do an attack. We know our attack with Remy is going to be 2 white dice, so we'll gather our dice pool like this. We could empower it if I wanted to be sure, I wanted to take it out. So we could spend that last one. Maybe I will actually, seeing as that I can dodge and I can counter. So yeah, let's burn that last stamina point in order to empower the attack and give us a black die. We always have the risk of failing by hitting the skull, but hopefully that won't happen. We have to choose a target, so I'm just going to go ahead and choose the green one so that if we need to get our character here into a position next to this rock in order to push it later on, he's actually between both advantageous things, so I can kind of get this thing out of here. So let's aim for the green one and hope for the best. Here is the roll. That's a pretty solid roll. So we got ourselves a 9, so that is going to be a hit. A 9 minus the 8 defense that cave sickle has is going to give us 1 damage to start. We also have 2 shields, and I can spend shields to get an additional physical damage for each of them, so now we're up to 3. The book is going to do nothing with Remy currently, sadly. And we got a whole bunch of books. Oh my gosh, we really need to get some items that make use of those books, because that's pretty outrageous. So that's kind of sad. Oh yeah, and then we get the extra 1, sorry, from the hammer helm. So technically 4 damage. 2 away from killing it. Ah, so close. Okay, so we're going to put 4 damage on the cave sickle. So that is the green one. So it's not dead yet, sadly. I was really hoping that would happen. The other thing I could do, though, if I wanted to risk things, is I have the hammer helm. I keep saying this backwards. The hammer helm discipline card here, and it says to exhaust it if I want to. If I exhaust this when making an attack, if you have a 2-handed weapon equipped, you may reroll any dice in your combat pool. I'm super tempted to re-roll one of these dice. Now I could potentially re-roll this one, because if I re-roll this as part of my combat pool, if I land any shields, I might get enough shields to do the damage I need to kill it. I don't want to re-roll my hits, because that would stop me from actually making the first hit. So I'm happy with the fact I got a 9. That was over the 8 I needed. So let's re-roll this. I'm going to exhaust that hammer helm. And if there's any stamina cost with these particular discipline cards, it'll always be listed right here on the left-hand side in a circle in red. There is not. So it's just a simple exhaust, no stamina required. I'm going to roll this, hope for the best. Give me some shields. I just need 2 shields. Oh yeah, how about 4 shields? There we go. That is a successful kill. That worked out perfectly. So this cave sickle has been blown off of the map. Fantastic war axe went straight through that thing and just cut it right in half. No problems there. So we are finished with Remy's turn. That's exactly what I wanted to happen. And now we're going to go ahead and activate the 1 remaining cave sickle. All right, only 1 of these things remain and we can move on. And it doesn't have any damage on it currently, but the great news is, guys, we got rid of all of that ability for that 1 cave sickle to gain hive mind. We eliminated all of his friends. So basically, it will be attacking me with 2 white dice. Now, it's going to first check off the AI in the first box, which is there an opponent adjacent? Yes, there is. It's Remy. So we're going to make it, they're going to make an attack against us with the 2 white dice. Now, we have to decide whether or not we want to try to dodge this, and I don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to. So we're going to use that occult shirt. We're going to rotate this to exhaust it, which has the dodge underneath, and then of course we had that cool ability we've been using multiple times already, which I will not explain again, but basically we know our defense is 10. We are going to try to dodge, which is going to add a black die into the mix. Hopefully this is going to benefit us. All right, so let's do this roll. Hope for the best. Let's see lots and lots of shields on that black dice. Or die, I should say. There we go. Nice. 4. That's amazing. Oh, and he even got a really good hit, too. So he would have absolutely just throttled us for sure. But what's going to happen is our defense is going to go from 9 plus 1 for the ability core that I have on Remy that we talked about earlier. Has a plus 1 right there. So it's 10 plus 4 is going to be 14. And it got a 12 in total for numeric value. So it's not going to hit. So the really cool thing is we can now look at the very bottom of this occult shirt card, and it says if the attack deals no damage, unexhaust this card and counter. So basically it's going to allow me to go ahead and make a free attack against it, which is fantastic. So we're going to unexhaust the card. It's going to go back upright again, and now I get to actually make an attack back at that cave sickle. So this is really, really cool. You guys get to finally see that counter in action. Now I'm super excited to see how this war axe hit's going to go. So what I'm going to do is something I did didn't do when it was my turn because I didn't want to waste it. I wanted to see if this counter would work out, and it did perfectly. I'm going to be able to exhaust this War Axe card when I use it, turning it sideways, and it says when determining damage, this weapon gains 1 physical damage until the attack is resolved for all books. So when I was looking for the book symbol before, this is something that I can use that book symbol for, and I'm definitely going to use it right now. Of course, it's like a one-time thing. I exhaust it, and I get it back once the round ends, essentially. But for now, exhausting it, we're going to roll our 2 white dice. That's going to be really, really nice. So hopefully this pans out well. I don't have any stamina in order to empower this attack, so I'm strictly going into this with 2 white dice, which is definitely not the greatest roll ever. I have nothing else that I can do to boost this. My hammer helm will automatically give me an additional physical damage going in so long as I hit, and we know we need to get an 8 or higher. So here we go, cross your fingers, maybe we'll get this guy knocked out in this particular attack. Oh, is that enough? No, it's not. Or wait, let me see. So that is the, 7. That is not going to work out for me. And I've already gone ahead and exhausted my hammer helm, so I can't use that to re-roll my dice. That is going to be a miss. Oh, that's too unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate for me. So that is not going to work out. The counter doesn't work, so I will have to spend another turn there next time swinging away. So that is a fail. We're going to go ahead and continue on now. So that was the Cavesicle's attack, which then missed, and then I countered. So now we're moving on to Rook. So this actually works out pretty good so long as the dice rolling's in my favor here, but I'm going to go ahead and spend 1 stamina on Rook to get Rook to move. So we're going to be able to move up to 5 spaces. Normally it's 6, but again, he's got those heavy double hammers in his hand, so he's going to move a little slower than normal. Now, if I try to go through this space here, it's going to slow me down. So I could go 1 into here, 2 movement into here, and then, I guess it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This would actually get him all the way to here, no problem. So that's perfect. That's exactly where I want to be, because not only is he beside the rock, he's also beside this creature. So this works out really well. First off, instead of focusing on the rock first, I'm going to focus in on the Cavesicle. So I'm going to actually turn my guy around in this, staying in the same place, but just focus my efforts over there. We're going to try to swing at this thing and do some damage. Now, what I want to do is I want to keep at least 1 stamina available, because I want to try to make a skill check at getting rid of this particular rock. Now, how you do a skill check, which I'll do right after I make an attack, but I'll explain it now just so you guys understand, is you take a look at the skills in the bottom left-hand corner of a character card. So you can see there down the bottom left hand corner, you've got a bunch of different stats. So strength is the one that's 6. Basically, remember that 6 value. That's basically the strength value that I have on Rook. You take then 2 purple dice and you're going to roll them, and then whatever values are on them, you're going to add to your strength. And as long as I get 10 or higher, then I'm able to move this rock out of the way. So in other words, I have quite a big leg up, and it was a good thing Rook's there, because Rook has a strength of 6 starting, whereas Remy has 4. So Rook is the guy that I want there because it gives me a better chance of pulling this off. Now the purple dice are also fairly terrible in terms of the rolls and values there, but there are some 6s and 7s, so it might happen. It's kind of a 50-50 shot probably, or maybe a little bit better than 50-50 odds. So first off though, before I choose to spend a stamina to move this thing or attempt to move it, I'm going to go after the Cavesicle while I have the chance here. So let's spend 2 stamina. This is going to drop me down to the 1 stamina I need to move the rock later. We're going to make an attack on this Cavesicle, and we're going to be using our Warhammer. So first thing I'm going to do is grab my 2 white dice for both of the Warhammers. Next thing I'm going to do is what I did last time. I'm going to exhaust one of the Warhammers again in order to empower, as it states right there in the middle of the card. So we're turning this sideways. We gain the empower, which gives us a black die, giving us a risk reward, potentially getting us more damage. Maybe I get lucky and wipe this thing right off the map. Who knows? So with that being said, we've got everything we need for our dice pool, and we're ready to roll and see how this thing pans out. So let's go ahead and roll. We're looking for an 8 or higher. Come on, dice, be in my favor. Let's do this. Oh, perfect. That is a lot of goodness right there. So we got ourselves the 9, which is great. 9 minus 8 is 1, so that's 1 damage already. In terms of extra damage, every 2 shields counts as 1 physical damage, so we have 2 shields. So that's going to give us another point of damage, so now we're up to 2. We have 1 star. We can use stars as physical damage with Rook, sorry. So that's going to be 3 damage. And nothing else I have is going to allow me to use books. So we are going to only land 3 damage, sadly. I thought I was going to be able to wipe that thing away, but I couldn't do it, but I got halfway there, so that's not terrible. All right, there's one other thing I really want to focus in on, guys, in terms of break attacks. This is a really cool mechanic that doesn't apply right now, but it's worth mentioning what a break attack is. So basically, combatants and adventurers can basically be impacted by break attacks. And essentially what it means is if you're adjacent to somebody, which all 3 of these individuals are right now, adjacent to a combatant or an adventurer, if they chose, in this particular case, at any point in time to move out or away from that particular enemy that's adjacent to them, they would have to take a break attack. So I'm not going to go into the specifics of how the break attack works until it actually happens, because in this case, we're just going to stay exactly where we are. But I am allowed to actually stay in the exact same spot and then go ahead and do an encounter action on this rock to try to move it, because I'm not moving away from that particular enemy while I do this. So I'm going to spend that last point of stamina right now in order to roll, hoping with 2 purple dice that I'm able to get the skill or the values on the dice I need, numeric values, high enough to move this rock. So we've got a strength of 6 going in. We're rolling 2 dice. We're hoping for the best. Here we go. Pushing that rock. Oh yeah, easy. We didn't even need the 6 we already had. So this was an easy shove. Everything else doesn't matter. That rock is no longer there. So basically, when you make a successful check to move this rock, it states in the scenario book that you can move this thing to any space that's unoccupied. So I could even push it to here, which would be silly though, because that would actually stop me from being able to move anywhere. So I can also push it off into these dangerous terrain locations, and the rock essentially falls into the pit and is removed from the game. So that's what I'd prefer. Just get that thing out of there. So that's it. I've done it. We have successfully not only opened the pathway up to head to the final tile, but we've also got the Cave Sickle weakened, and we have Rook kind of leading the charge down the hallway, with Remy looking to make the final smack on the Cave Sickle starting for the next round. So with Rook's turn done, we quickly went through that round. You can see with less rules explanation, the game is picking up, and we're on to the second, or we've done a second full round. We move back to Remy at this point.